to the Daily Ascent. I'm Molly Carmel, and this is the podcast I always wish existed, a bite-sized, on-the-ground, spiritual note that could shift your thinking and your outlook on life to make us all a little bit more awake, alive, and ascending. And so today I want to talk about something that sits right at the intersection of work, leadership, love, truth. It is a toughie for me, and it's about letting go early. It's about choosing based on the goal instead of the personality, and about how sometimes the most loving decision does not feel good and it doesn't feel easy, and it still ends up being right. So I've shared a bunch of times on the podcast that I hired an incredible assistant named Kathy. And she came into my life at exactly the right moment. Like, oh my gosh, you know, just like the when the student is ready, the teacher arrives vibes. And when I interviewed her, the thing I really loved about her was her energy. Like she was such a go-getter. She was such a yes lady. And if she didn't know something, she'd figure it out. And she was just like there to take care of me. And it was amazing. And she was confident and warm and eager and steady. And that really mattered deeply at that time in my life. I really needed that kind of support and consistency and someone who wasn't intimidated by working hard and would just like, leap and let the net appear with me. And she did that so, so beautifully. But life moves fast, and the work that I was creating really started to ask for something much more specific. And I had no idea that this was going to be the case. And so, as it turned out, I really needed help that was far more than just like general support or like warm hugs and good intentions, and even like, a good hustle. Don't get me wrong. I really needed intricate technical knowledge of these like very particular programs and systems that sit at the center of my businesses. And unfortunately, this just wasn't something that could be learned casually, without a real cost. And that was such a painful realization for me, like so, so painful. Because I like love the story of like, she'll learn it, she's a fast learner. Like, I love that. I love a comeback story. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I really liked her and I really trusted her effort. And like change is really hard, especially when it's with someone who has already shown up for you in really meaningful ways. And there's just no mistakes here in the spiritual universe because at the very same time, there was someone in my coaching peer group who shared something that landed straight to my chest. And he had made this huge leap in his business that grew like 5x kind of out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere, because when somebody asked what had changed in his business and how it grew so fast, he just very plainly said, I started firing early. And he said, and I wasn't doing that for a really, really long time. And I hated that sentence when he said it. I hated it. It just stung because it was the opposite of how I usually operate. Because, like, especially when I've invested and I've, sort of opened my home or my business or my life to somebody, my instinct is really to stay and to try harder. And unfortunately, to carry the cost quietly. Except for when I do that, it gets loud kind of quickly because I'm the one who pays for it. I pay for it with my time and my energy, and almost always slash always my resentment. And resentment doesn't just hurt me, it damages the relationship too. And so when I finally saw this situation with Kathy clearly, I knew what I was being asked to do. Ugh. And my friends, my ascenders, this conversation was not easy. It was not painless. She was rightfully very, very upset. She wanted to know what she had done wrong. She really prides herself on her professionalism and on her hustle. And the truth was, she hadn't done anything wrong, right? I just needed something very, very different. And letting her go did not feel good, but it felt right and it felt honest. And not that this happens every time we make a decision like this, but what really surprised me was that I hired people. I mean, this might not surprise you, but I was like, I hired people who were specialists in exactly what my business needed. And guess what? Things got moving quickly, you know, cleanly, responsibly, without any low grade tension that I had been carrying in this previous relationship. And that's when I knew that the decision, though very hard and very pulling on my heartstrings, had been right. And I wanted to bring a pocket sage. We've had this pocket sage on before, from the Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday, who really has been able to synthesize a lot of Stoicism. And a quick word about Stoicism, because it's not really the spirituality we usually have on Daily Ascent, but it's really, really good. It's not about Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion or being cold. It's about facing reality without drama and acting with integrity inside of it. It doesn't ask us to like the truth. It asks us to stop fighting it. And, in these situations, I feel like Stoicism is so helpful. So here is the reading. We must make the best of those things that are in our power and take the rest as nature gives it. It is foolish to wish for what does not exist or to demand that circumstances be other than they are. I'll give it to you for those in the back. We must make the best of those things that are in our power and take the rest as nature gives it. It is foolish to wish for what does not exist or to demand that circumstances be other than they are. Ain't that the truth? So, our word of the day today, clarity. And clarity, I mean, it is loud, but it also isn't loud. And it doesn't usually arrive with certainty or relief. It often just shows up like carrying grief with it, or disappointment, or fear. It's the moment when you stop asking a situation to become something else and allow yourself to respond to what is actually being asked of you in a given situation. And here is the deeper lesson for me. You know, this situation with Kathy, it's not an always, right? Because sometimes growing together is really, really, really the right choice. Like you're supposed to be traveling this path and working things through with somebody, right? Sometimes learning side by side is exactly what a season calls for. But there are other moments where staying simply because we care a lot or we see potential or we don't want to disappoint anyone, that creates a situation that costs everyone more than we admit. And what I've learned the hard way is that when I choose based on personality instead of purpose, I quietly start betraying the goal. And when the goal begins to suffer, so do I. And not all at once. That's the hardest part of it. Not all at once, right? At first, it shows up as like low grade tension, and then frustration, and then urgency, and then the feeling that I'm carrying more than I should be. And then eventually, I mean, if I'm being honest, it just turns into resentment. And I'm an ugly, resentful person. I promise you that. Resentment's corrosive, completely corrosive to the spirit. And resentment doesn't just hurt us, even though it does extremely, but it changes how I show up in the world. It leaks into tone, it leaks into patience, it leaks into trust. And by the time resentment takes hold, any relationship I'm trying to protect is damaged. And then I have to go make repairs, which is exhausting. And so that's really where Stoicism has been such a helpful teacher for me, because it's about telling the truth early, right? It's about accepting what is and kind of like taking the very best action you can that's in the highest good for you and whoever is around. And Responding to reality as it is, not as we wish it would become, is to really act with integrity. It's just where clarity lives. And so, what that looked like for me was just admitting something super uncomfortable. Liking someone, believing in their effort, appreciating their care doesn't mean they're the right fit for the work that's required. Wanting a situation to evolve doesn't make it aligned, and paying the cost quietly doesn't make me generous. It just delays an inevitable reckoning. You know, Clarity does not always feel good in the moment. Clarity almost never feels good in the moment when it's a hard choice, right? But over time, it gives you back your steadiness. It gives you back your center. It protects the work that you're doing. And that is in work relationships, love relationships, family relationships. Just it protects the work and preserves dignity on both sides. And it allows forward movement without dragging the weight of quiet resentment behind you. Sometimes the most loving choice isn't staying longer, it's ending sooner, while honesty is still possible. So, my question for you today: where in your life might clarity be asking you to choose based on the goal rather than the comfort of familiarity? And listen, if you're navigating these decisions, personal boundaries, long-standing patterns of overgiving, choosing clarity doesn't make you unkind. It makes you honest and eventually very, very kind. And listen, if you notice that you tend to stay too long or carry too much or pay the cost quietly until it turns to resentment, it is a lot of the work that we do in my Stop Starting Over program. It's really good. It helps to teach you how to learn how to listen earlier and choose cleaner and build a life and a relationship with food and yourself that doesn't quietly drain you. And you can learn more about it at mollycarmel.com. But in any case, I want you to know I am right here with you, Ascenders. I am choosing honesty over avoidance to the best of my ability and clarity over wishful thinking. We're going to rise together a day at a time. I'll see you tomorrow.